please join me in welcoming my dear friend, Deena Fidas.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much, Chris. Good morning. Welcome to our Leadership Forum. With a show of hands or a call out, who is here for the first time? Very nice. Second time? What about our legacy leaders? Make a little noise. It's okay. It's early. Let's make some noise. Legacy leaders? Well, welcome to each of you. Now, for the most important question, do we have any Golden Girls fans here? Well, if Sophia were here, she'd say, picture it, San Francisco, 2007. In a hotel meeting room, a fraction of this size, Out and Equal put the call out. Where are all the LGBTQ executives? A few dozen folding chairs later, the executive forum was born. The who are we, where are we call for out execs became an annual leadership conference. Since then, thousands have joined Out and Equal in this journey. Expo became the place where executives who happen to be LGBTQ were transformed into bold LGBTQ+ leaders and change makers. That is the essence of why this annual gathering endures. It's also why we reimagined it for this year and for the future, because our queer change work isn't relegated to corner offices and ivory towers. Here's what's so unique and powerful about the movement to make workplaces LGBTQ inclusive. When Out and Equal and the HRC's Corporate Equality Index and NGLCC were all standing up in the late 90s and early 2000s, there was no blueprint for success. When companies talked about diversity and inclusion initiatives, they were mainly focused on legal compliance, on race and gender. 25 years ago, there was no legal compliance case for LGBTQ inclusion because there were no employment protections. In fact, not a single federal law protected our community, not even from hate crimes. Gay men were still getting arrested for consensual relations. The AIDS epidemic continued to ravage our community. More states had laws on the books restricting our rights than permitting equal treatment under the law. Just a few Fortune 500 companies had protections for the LGBTQ community, and there were very few out senior leaders. So it was in this grim environment that we forged a new path, the business case for LGBTQ inclusion. And that case was built by change makers like all of us in this room. 3 decades ago at P&G, an earnest woman in her early 20s, a straight ally, took her first corporate job out of Peace Corps. As a marketing associate, she noticed one of their healthcare products was bringing relief to an ignored population, gay men living with HIV. How can we as a company serve our customers if our values and our policies don't reflect them, she and others asked. And with the rallying of other leaders, this became a history-making moment for the company when they added sexual orientation protections decades before many other Fortune companies. A little later at JP Morgan Chase, a young out gay man just starting his career was among the early ERG leads. In his words, I knew I needed to push for domestic partner benefits years before I would even have a partner. At Merck, a brave woman in the early 2000s educated her colleagues on her experience transitioning, helping to build gender transition guidelines and advocate for equitable healthcare benefits. None of these folks had DEI in their job title. None of these brave, bold individuals were executives. All of these individuals were leaders with enduring impact. This is why we have evolved this forum in name and content to the Leadership Forum. We recognize that leadership is embodied across all levels of organizations, and perhaps more than any other movement for change, this 3-decade project to transform workplaces has been driven by scrappy but strategic, sometimes scared but brave, committed, queer, and ally professionals. Just about all of us have identities that put us on the margins. The experience of being marginalized can be demoralizing, it can be angering, it can also be motivating and illuminating. The view from the margins is actually the widest lens. Think about it. When you don't occupy the center, what do you get to observe? All the possible fault lines, the spaces and solutions unseen by those taking up the most space. This is one of the superpowers of queer and allied leadership. Because we move through this world as survivors, we bring to our leadership so many powerful and unique qualities. Our resilience when faced with the blunt force of adversity, from lawmakers insistent on trying to write us out of existence. Our empathy extended even to those who have hurt us. Our creativity to problem solve and innovate when the chips are down, and our joy, the inner light that outshines discrimination and shame in who we are. The joy in the drag queen's swagger down the runway, the joy in the dance on a pride float, the joy in staying true to ourselves. Last night, Aaron talked a bit about isolation. Isolation is not just being alone. It's being present in the group, but having whole parts of you denied or treated with apathy. Belonging is the antidote to isolation. Belonging is that ideal state of being made to feel so comfortable in your own skin, in all of your identities and life experience, so comfortable and so welcome, you forget it's unique to be able to show up at work like that. You get to take for granted that you're trans, that you're pan, that you're bi, that you're gay, that you're the proud parent of a queer kid. We on the margins cannot simply insist we belong. We have to engage our workplaces, our allies, and yes, even those who don't understand or like us. We have to make workplaces structurally sound in their inclusive policies and benefits. We have to name the differences that are held against us, from blatant discrimination to subtle unconscious slights and biases. DEI is an explicit response to implicit bias. DEI is not the divide for division's sake caricature that we're seeing in the news. That just isn't smart for anyone. It's not why hundreds of leading companies have invested so much in diversity, equity, and inclusion. The identities we surface, those that feel the most prominent in a given space, are typically those parts of who we are that are actively excluded. DEI is not the end game. It's a strategic framework to get to belonging. It's not that LGBTQ people insist on bringing our sexuality or gender identity to the workplace. It's that the workplace demands a level of sharing of all of us. And we're at our strongest when we know we belong. When we know who we are is an asset of value to our companies and organizations. The Leadership Forum is a space to unburden yourself from feeling isolated, to exchange ideas with peers and people you might not think you have much in common with. But I guarantee you, by the end of this week, you will feel deeply connected. It's a space to name the challenges we are facing and generate effective solutions. So allow yourself to be inspired, ensure you meet and deepen connections with those who are different from you, and most importantly, as Aaron said last night, take with you the baton of change work we are all entrusted with. Those of us in rooms like this, we're the lucky ones. The only way this week will be made real and valuable is if we all hold ourselves accountable for what happens after we leave. How we hold ourselves strong and firm in the notion that we have to be the leadership for our times. History isn't something you look back at and say it was inevitable. It happens because people make decisions that are sometimes very impulsive and of the moment, but those moments are cumulative realities. Marsha P. Johnson, the Black queer godmother of pride, said that. Justice, equity, inclusion, and belonging, these are not inevitable. Getting there takes all of us, in our most spontaneous moments of resilience to our most thoughtfully constructed plans. How will you build out our shared cumulative realities? How will you leave your workplace and your communities stronger than you found them? Welcome to the new Leadership Forum. Welcome to your journey, and welcome to being the leaders we all need more than ever. Thank you all.